Well, welcome to Council Preview, and this is for our Common Council meeting. It takes place May 25th on a Tuesday, already at the end of May. I got Steve Barg, our City Administrator, with me.
Good to be here, Tom.
All right. Well, we have a number of items that are going to take place on this agenda at 6, although we have a little piece before that. I'll call it little. It could be larger, but it's our CIP. It's the second part of it, 5 o'clock, right?
Yeah, the second CIP meeting was supposed to be on the 27th, Tom, but we got through all the projects except for the UW, and they're going to present at the beginning of the meeting on Tuesday night at 5 o'clock. And then the council will have some time to discuss if they want to make any additions or changes to the plan. But they figured an hour would be enough, so they'll be able to break for a couple minutes and then come back for the regular meeting at 6.
All right. Well, we'll hear from those people at the UW. Again, we own that property, and that's why they're part of it, right?
Right. We're co-owners with the county, and so we go in on the projects and we have to review, and the county does as well, reviews the capital type items that they want to try to do to keep the facility up.
All right. Well, sounds good, Steve. All right. Let's move right to consent agenda. That has to do with all our boards, commissions, and committees. There's some few things that you highlight, although quite a few items on here. We're not going to talk about them all because we'd be here for 2 hours.
It would be, yeah, you're right.
But we picked out, and you did as well, contract 2021-2022 bid award for more street projects and utility projects.
Well, what does summer mean in Wisconsin? Street work, right? Mm-hmm. And these are 4 larger projects that we're bidding out, and we put out bids. We got 3 bidders. And the projects involved, Tom, are Blodgett Street from St. Joseph Avenue to Wood Avenue, Cedar Avenue from 6th to 8th Street, East 8th Street and Maple Avenue, east and west, both sides, and then Lincoln Avenue from Blodgett Street to Briarwood Street. And so we went out, we got 3 bidders, and the low bidder is Gerke Excavating from Toma at $662,000. And it's interesting because oftentimes a lot of our work goes to Earth Incorporated from ARPA, and we're glad to have them. They do a great job, excellent contractor, but in this case, the bid was quite a bit lower from Gerke, and we'll be excited to have them on board and doing some work here in the city.
So this bid, does this repair the street? I'm just curious. I don't really know.
Yeah, the project, and the projects aren't spec'd out here. I think they were previously. But if you look at the second page of the memo, I mean, there's reference to some of the other people participating in the cost, which tells you that there's a sanitary sewer component, a water main component, and other parts to this puzzle. So we're talking about more than just, in some of these cases anyway, more than just actually resurfacing the street. And there is obviously some work that at least involves to some degree utilities. I don't have the actual project data here, but these are larger projects, and we are bidding them out for work in the summer of 2021.
Oh, yet this summer. So
yes,
that's a good thing. Okay, well, we'll see if anybody pulls that item out. Let's talk more about asphalt. This is a new treatment called a rejuvenating surface treatments. What's that about?
Every once in a while, we have Dan Kinneck, our Public Works Director, Tom Turchi, the city engineer, and their staff hear about or find out about a new technique, a new way to do things. You probably remember some of the ways talked about to treat salt and sand. I mean, salt with, I should say treat roads without using salt and sand. We talked about beet juice and all these kind of things. Well, recently they've become aware of something called rejuvenating surface treatment. And what it is, and I'm just going to kind of read it from the memo because I don't want to get this wrong, what this is designed to do is to penetrate into the asphalt. It strengthens the surface and resists the effects of exposure to the sun, water, and air, of which those are the things, water in particular, but all those things reduce the life of pavement. So it's a relatively new process, but they've even been able to see some effects reversing the effects of aging on streets. So we're going to try it. We're going to give it a shot and move forward with that and see how it works. Our target for 2021 is to cover all the streets that were paved in 2020 and even some streets from a couple of years past, and we'll track whether we see improvement, whether we see a better protection of the surface, and if it's successful, like all things, we'll continue it. If it proves to be less than successful, we won't. But the proposal we want to take is one from Corrective Asphalt Materials, and we're excited about this opportunity.
Well, anyway, any possible way to keep the roadways from breaking up is important. Otherwise, you're going to go back and have to redo the roadway, is what I was mentioning. It's similar to me, like paint on cars, that they have to put like a clear that protects the paint. Something similar.
Well, yeah, and I oftentimes on this program with you, Tom, have compared street maintenance to dental care. And I'm sure people have heard that and thought, Steve, please stop. Okay. But really, the battle is, with dental care, the battle is the regular, cleanings and dealing with some of the minor filling issues before they become bigger problems. That's the same thing here. You don't want to be talking about reconstruction. Reconstruction is a very expensive process. You want to do the maintenance to get as much life as you can out of the street before you have to dig it up and rebuild. And this is one more avenue to preserve the street longer and get more life out of it.
All right, we'll have to see if any talk happens with that project. Otherwise, it'll be ready to go yet this year.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about the hold time for, I'll call them impounded animals or lost animals that are picked up, right?
Yeah, this one might have a little conversation about it. I can see this possibly being pulled out. It was discussed quite a bit by the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee the other night. The state law in 2015 was modified. It used to say that you had to hold impounded animals, dogs and cats, for 7 days before you could either look for another owner or euthanize or whatever it was going to be the ultimate disposition of the animal. Well, in 2016 we had a conversation about this, and MAPS was on the scene fairly new at that point. And they were uncomfortable with the idea that we would mirror state law. And so was our ordinance officer at the time, Bob Larson, because they wanted to see how MAPS got off the ground as far as processing stray animals, if there were any problems with it, make sure we're allowing enough time for the dog and cat owners to find their pets and that kind of thing. It's a permissive thing by the state, meaning you don't have to go from 7 to 4, but you're allowed to. Well, now the tide has turned. It's been 5 years, Tom, and Karen Rao from MAPS and Bob Larson, still with us, doing an outstanding job as ordinance enforcement officer, are now supportive of cutting it from 7 to 4. They're saying that we normally find the owners of dogs and cats rather quickly, that they come forward to reclaim their pets. If that doesn't happen, you start getting out to days 5, 6, and 7, it's pretty unlikely, and you're really not doing them a favor by holding them longer without pursuing adoption or other avenues. So, but there was some conversation with the council, with the committee about whether this was the best move, and they raised a couple of those questions. But it was ultimately voted, I think unanimously, to send it on to council under consent for final approval. So if this gets approved, then we will only have a 4-day required hold time for stray animals.
It also helps in space as well, right? Although you're keeping them, they'll, like you say, be up for adoption and have it if needed, is what you're telling me, right? They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, right. Karen Rao and Caitlin, who works as the shelter manager, and other people who work so faithfully with MAPS, they do a wonderful job, Tom. They're interested in seeing animals get to good homes. So I think sooner rather than later, if the dog or cat is not going to be reclaimed by its owner, they'd like to get into the process of trying to find a suitable home for that animal, and we applaud that. This would be another avenue to help them do that.
All right. Well, you have another piece here on consent agenda here that you added about assessing service. Is that in consent or is that outside of consent?
It's in consent.
Okay.
I didn't have it on the original agenda because I really had that on the agenda the other night for the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee as an information-only item. I really wasn't looking for them to act. They looked at 3 options, Tom. Our assessing contract with Grota Appraisals out of Menominee Falls is coming to an end on December 31st. And Grota's done a fine job for us, but we're looking at other avenues. And the 3 options are: 1, stay with Grota for another year, 2 years, 3 years by extending the contract. Number 2 would be to do what we call an RFP, request for proposals, and see what other assessing firms are out there and if they'd like to bid on our account. Maybe they'd make a good price offer and good service plan to help the city move forward. The third one would be to hire a staff person. Until 2017, Tom, we had Joan Spencer. She was our assessor for nearly 4 decades. Great lady, did a wonderful job. Then the question came up, did we want to go back to hiring an in-house staff assessor who would be at the office 40 hours a week? Well, after a lot of discussion, the committee recommended to the council that we go with an RFP. And Grota can apply as well, but we get people to send proposals on what they would do and what they would charge to be our assessor. So that's the direction, if the council agrees on consent, that the city will be pursuing. We'll be looking at taking proposals for assessing services after the first of the year.
These companies or anybody that's in that position has to really be licensed, is that correct? Yeah,
they have tremendous certification requirements and training, continuing education.
Yeah.
They're trained, and there's about a half a dozen of them that you hear a lot about in the state that do most of the accounts. And so I'm sure we'll probably see, 3 or 4 proposals, I would guess, although I don't know that. But yeah, they will be from reputable firms that have done this and are qualified to do the work.
Yeah, there's a few municipalities near us that do the same. I believe, I know Rapids does.
Yep.
I believe Plover has an in-house person. But I guess we'll see that decision by the council where we're going with it.
Yeah, Rapids and Point both share the same assessor, Steve Shapiro, I think his name is.
Yep.
And that's the way to go to and be able to serve both communities and their needs and maybe have it cut the cost a little bit.
Yeah. No, Steve's a good guy. I had a chance to work with him for many years. So.
Oh, excellent.
All right, let's get out of the consent and get on to your about 8 things we have highlighted, maybe more. We'll see how much time we have here. Let's talk about stormwater because, it's summer and that detention pond, I think you see right near the hospital, isn't that a detention pond?
Yeah, and I think people don't realize how important stormwater management is. Who thinks about it except when there's a heavy rainstorm and the catch basins get clogged and the water backs up into the intersection. But we're responsible, Tom, for not only treating the volume of stormwater, which I think most people realize, but the quality too, to make sure that what's going out from there that we put out ultimately is not contaminated or whatever. So he's going to give a report on all the things we've done in the last year, what the status is of our stormwater lines and our ponds, and where the trouble spots might be, things we need to be looking at in the future. Are there cost expectations that we need to look at in terms of future treatment of our stormwater? Tom does a great job, outstanding city engineer, and he'll get us caught up on the last 12 months of that important area that, like I said, very few people see, but it comes up every development, it comes up every project we talk about. Is the stormwater properly accounted for? So this is a good time to kind of have a summary report on where we stand.
Well, so far, we haven't had a lot of rain this year, so
That's true.
It hasn't been used as much. It's probably down a little bit, but like you say, when you need it, it has to, I don't want to say work properly, but it's important. So
Yeah, when people want to build, we need to be able to say that if you build in this area, we can help you accommodate to meet that need too, because it's every bit as important as other utilities.
Yep. All right, well, let's talk about a resolution you have here that's to do with the utility. Can you just talk a little bit about what that's about here?
Yeah, we're still trying to encourage people through the Marshfield Utilities, which is part of us, but sort of independently operated, to replace the lead service lines, the private lines from the water main in the middle of the street to their homes. And we've identified where these are. They know where they are across the city, that were built in a certain area, and therefore they're lead-based lines. So in order to make this more palatable, they want to continue a program that they've tried to pursue in the past, and that is getting a loan from the state through the Safe Water Loan Drinking Program and be able to make those dollars available to the homeowners. And there's a forgivable amount, so we can certainly be able to help people, encourage them, if you will, to replace lines by picking up some of the cost. I don't know all the particulars. I don't have it in front of me right now, but this is something that Nick Cum of Utilities, the general manager, has been working on, and the commission is too. They really want to encourage people to replace these lines wherever possible with a different type of service line rather than the lead. And hopefully this will entice people to step into the water, pardon the pun, and take part in this process and get those replaced.
All right, well, Nick will be in person that day, I would think, or on Zoom, and present that to the council. I believe it's not really, it's more, well, it is an approval of resolution.
Yeah,
so.
it's a show of support that's required from the municipality for them to be able to secure this safe water drinking loan.
All right, well, let's talk about another resolution, and we're going to go back to maps for a minute.
Yeah.
We did already talk about, but this has to do with endorsing a program to trap, neuter, and return stray cats. Only cats we're talking about, I believe, not dogs, but cats in the area. What's that about?
Yeah, at a meeting we had with the council maybe a couple months ago, I forget the exact date, Tom, but we had representatives from MAPS, and Bob Larson, our ordinance officer, was with them talking about the cat overpopulation. This was brought up by one of our council members back in January, saying it seems like we've got a lot of stray cats and an increasing number of stray cats in Marshfield. Well, what they want to do is they want to start a program where they trap and then neuter and then release these cats. So, even though they're cats that don't have owners, they're cats we're not looking to do anything in particular with, that they're not going to reproduce. And I remember the statistics, but I don't remember the exact numbers. It was incredible, the amount of reproducing that's done by a typical stray cat in its lifetime. And as a result, not only the city of Marshfield, but the surrounding areas suffer from an overpopulation of cats that don't have a home, that are just stray and wild per se. So I think it's a very good program. They need a resolution of support from the city to do this. I think the council will be favorable. There were questions asked back at the previous meeting, but I think most of the members of the council grabbed onto the idea that this would probably be a good benefit. It's not a cost item, it's a matter of allowing them to try to reduce this population in a way that will help the citizens and help reduce the number of stray cats in and around Marshfield.
I just wonder if this area has more cats just because we are somewhat rural. We do have a lot of farms, and cats do go there and sometimes live, and maybe they are kind of meandering over to the city, and that's how we have a little bit more of a overpopulation. But this gives our ordinance control options to get them, or I don't want to say I guess trap, and bring them in, right? If they're strays.
I think that it'll be 3 people at the podium, as I understand it. It'll be Caitlin and Karen from MAPS and Bob representing the city and ordinance enforcement. I think that they'll give a little deeper dive into what this program will actually look like. How will they be trying to execute it? They hit on it a couple months ago, and I think they got some raised eyebrows that maybe this is a good idea to try and head off a growing problem. But I expect that they'll probably go a little bit further into the program itself on Tuesday night. Okay,
all right. Let's talk about Wenzel Family Plaza. That what's been here now? What, 3-4 years now?
Yeah.
What's the change there?
Well, we started out with kind of trying to figure out what the best organizational plan would be. And what we had was we had the city of Marshfield involved, obviously, through our recreation department. Visit Marshfield, which was formerly, the CVB, Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the Marshfield Economic Development Board's been involved as well. And then Main Street Marshfield. And it was under the umbrella of Main Street Marshfield that they had a Wenzel Family Plaza Committee. Well, the committee, were the ones that kind of oversaw, if you will, the activities of the director. And Nikki does a wonderful job, of that, trying to get programming on the plaza. But they kind of came to the impression that there were some concerns about was this the right model? Was it the right model for Nikki to be reporting through to the Main Street Board, or should she be more associated directly with the city? There have also been some funding issues that have come up. And as you know, the room tax money that we get is based upon people staying at our lodging facilities. And you can probably guess with COVID that 2020 saw a reduction in room tax money. People weren't here as much for going to our hotels. So there have been some changes. And what's come out of this, if you look at the summary toward the bottom, the monies for the wages and benefits of the staff person, which, by the way, the proposal is for Nikki, for that position now to become a city employee, as opposed to somebody who's outside of city employment. But this would happen around the end of 2021 if approved. But the money for that person's wages would come from 3 sources. The EDB would provide 40%, Visit Marshfield would provide 40%, and the city would provide 20% of the funding. And we'd be looking to try and get a 4-year commitment if possible. One of the things that's hard is if somebody in Nikki's position trying to do work, trying to look ahead, feels like this is coming up every year, for review and discussion and revisiting whether or not this model works. So we're trying to get a commitment to the model along with sort of changing the structure.
All right. I was just reading through this. There's quite a bit of stuff in this packet that you sent, so that's what caught me off guard there for a minute. I wasn't found myself reading in. But okay, well, we'll see what happens, where that's going to go, and if there's the cost is talked about and where they're at. So
yeah, and what you probably read in the memo while we were talking, it has to do in part too with we want to get more activities and programs. It's all about getting that plaza used. We built it, wonderful. But are there concerts? Are there small festivals? Are there group activities? And that's what we want the director to be able to focus attention on. And we want a structure that best facilitates that.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Steve. Yep. Let's move on. We have a few more items. I have 4. Hopefully we have enough time. Let's talk about the subdivision that we've been talking about for the last few weeks. It's been in closed session. You still can't tell me where it is, I don't think, but I think it'll be released at council meeting, is that right?
Well, they're going to go into closed session also on Tuesday night to talk about, an agreement to acquire the land, which is looking very favorable. It's not like it's a shot in the dark. We've had good conversations, but we're not ready to reveal that property and the owner right now. But yeah, I think this is the next step. We had Josh Miller did a very nice presentation on May 11th. I saw it on tape, and making the case that we need to jumpstart housing in this community. We need more lots. This would be 20 plus lots, Tom, and we get some good homes. I think the expectation is in the 300 plus range, and it'd be good tax base for the city. And so we'd be working. The city again won't be the lead player as far as we're not building the homes. We'd be looking for people to buy and build on them. There'd be covenants. There'd be expectations per se in terms of what houses you put up. You can't put up a shack or put up a shed and call it a good day. So, but he's going to let them know that he's looking to pre-sale lots. He's hopefully going to give a report on Tuesday night about how many lots have already been pre-sold. And it might sound like the cart is getting ahead of the horse, but one of the things council wants to see is enough interest to substantiate this. So you gotta make sure you can show some evidence that people want to buy. And he's having some good conversations, and I think it's going to lead to positive results. So two things will happen that night, Tom. He'll be looking to give them an update on this project, and then secondly, he'll be looking for their direction to bring this to the Board of Public Works to start the infrastructure process, to get the idea of bidding out, putting in the street, sewer, water, and so forth.
Has City of Marshfield been involved in that in other past subdivisions, something like this, or is this new?
We tried this 5 years ago and then didn't get to the finish line. We started down this road. The city has participated in other subdivisions going back farther, in fact before my time, by agreeing to pay to put in the infrastructure and then recover through special assessments. But this is going well beyond that. This is staking the claim that we're going to acquire the lot, the land, and be able to move ahead with the lots, try and reduce the cost of the developers because we're able to absorb a little bit. We've never been a lead player quite like this before that I know.
All right, well, we'll hear more from our Development Service Director, Josh Miller.
Yep.
All right, we have a few minutes left here, according to our producer, David. We're going to talk about maps here again for our third time. They're sure in our program a lot. What's that about?
Yeah, they're also looking to update their contract. The last time their contract was updated was in 2017. And basically they're looking to get additional funds to offset the cost of their services. And this was debated at some length too, and such that the council didn't, or the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee directed not to put this under consent, but to make this a separate agenda item. So they wanted the full council to definitely talk about this. They're very supportive of MAPS. I think we all are. MAPS does a great job. But the increases are upwards of 80%, roughly. They're looking to bring the cost of a night impounding a cat from $7 to $13, and for a dog from $13 to $23. And you say, well, what would justify that? Well, MAPS does a lot of things. They've been doing them for a long time. They provide medical care to these animals when they're brought in, vaccinations, microchipping, things that we don't have to do, but they're good things, and they're beneficial ultimately to the city through the fact that the dog is better able to go back home healthy, or if it's going to be adopted, it's got those things. It can be tracked. It can be known to have the proper medical care already performed. So there were questions raised about, how large the jump is, and is this something we need to do? But ultimately, the committee seemed supportive, but they definitely did want the council to have a chance to talk about it and have it be its own separate agenda item.
All right, so it's an agreement for MAPS by the city to provide services to these animals.
Right, they're providing it now, and really they're providing most of what they talked about the other night for the level of service before. They just are looking to get compensated more because of the extra value that they add, and they do add a lot of extra value to the process.
Okay, so when you said compensate, you talk about price raising it up to $13 or so. Is that what you're talking about? We provide that monies
Correct.
to that? Okay.
Correct. If a person has their dog gets away from them and it's MAPS has it for 2 days, right now that person would have to pay $26 to get the dog back. Two nights at $13 a night. What they're suggesting is they provide a lot of care to that animal, and it would now go up to 40, whatever the dollar amount was. I didn't.
Okay. So how do we budget for something like that when you don't know how many animals are going to come in?
Well, it's hard, and actually, MAPS put this together with the drop from the 7-day hold to the 4-day hold, And Karen Rao made a big point of saying, if you adopt the 4-day hold, you've put a cap on the most that we're going to pay. So yes, it's higher. I mean, so for example, if a cat goes 7 days unclaimed and we have to pay $7 a day, the city does, for that cat, that comes out to be $49. Well, if we adopt this new pay schedule, it'd be $13. So that's a lot more. But it'd be a maximum of 4 days if they go for the 4-day hold. So it'd be $52 instead of $49. So what they're saying is the total amount, the maximum amount the city would pay for an unclaimed animal really would be the same, basically, if they adopt both of these policies at the same time. But again, the council will look at them both separately, as did the committee.
Is this the only monies we give to MAPS, or are there other monies that they get from the city?
There may be some other things in the budget where we've assisted them. Primarily, it's paying for the cost of impounded animals.
That's what it is. You don't get a lump sum like they would come and want $200,000 a year.
No, I mean we contributed toward the building of that facility, and it was almost $200,000 for that $1 million building. And by the way, they did a great job on it. It's a nice facility, but on an annual basis, no.
Okay. They used to be by the airport, correct?
They used to be using that old airport terminal building, and as of, I think, last year, sometime last spring or early summer, they transitioned to their new home, which is in the air park down by Slumberland area.
That's right. Okay. All right. 2 more things, and we will adjourn our meeting. We call it a meeting, but a show. Budget calendar already. You're talking about 2022. It's not even June. What are you talking about?
Well, it's interesting. You know, we started talking budget in May, and we're not done with CIP, right?
Right.
So what we're laying out for the council and looking for them to adopt is a schedule. Now, this time we put in for 4 meetings. In the past, we only listed 3 meetings in October. We needed a 4th meeting last year, if you recall. We're hopeful that since we've done some things from an expense side and the council agreed to a tax increase last year, that we've made some progress in terms of alleviating a little bit the structural budget deficit. But we're looking at a process that will have them getting an early update from us in early September. And then the main meetings, Tom, don't happen until October. Now, staff starts working on the budget next month, actually. You know, they start having a kickoff meeting and then working, in earnest in July. But the council, it's October 12th, 18th, and the 26th, which would be the 3 meetings. And then if a 4th one is needed, it would be November 1st. That gives us enough time after that meeting to get the budget published in the official newspaper and be able to have a hearing and adoption on November 23rd. That's important because, we have to have time after that to prepare the tax bills to get them out by mid-December, which is always the goal.
All right. Well, I bet you're looking forward to it this year. I think you're going to have we budgeted for new software. They're working on it. It's going to help.
Yeah, that's going to help us a lot. Again, software is something that the public looks at and says, I'm spending money for what? But it makes us more effective and efficient. It's going to really help us a lot in terms of budgeting and tracking expenditures.
Exactly. All right, one more thing, compensation plan that has to do with wages, correct?
Yeah, and this is a follow-up to the presentation that Jennifer Raku made 2 weeks ago when I was not there. I was coming back from vacation. She walked through the current plan, answered questions, and now what we want to do, Tom, is follow up and have it be, well, first of all, I want to follow up on the questions that were raised and not answered that night. But then I'm going to really ask the council, do you have any questions or concerns about the plan? And not talking about the specific dollars at this point, but as far as how the plan is structured, the way we move people through the steps, everything. If you do, let's talk about them. My goal is at the end of that night, if we all agree, okay, we're on track, this is the plan, and going forward, we're going to try to follow it to the best of our ability. There'll still be discussions and debates about how far we can go. Not every council member will agree on the increases in the future, but at least we understand and are fully on board again with the plan. Now I have to remind people that at least 3, if not 4 of our council members weren't even here in 2018 when this plan was adopted. So they've needed time just to understand it. And they're probably thinking right now while you and I talk about some of the stuff they heard and does it all make sense. So this will be council's chance to do a Q&A deeper with us and raise any concerns that they have about the actual structure of the plan. All
right, well there's no recommendation on this right
now.
No,
it's information only again. If anything comes from this, it will follow this meeting in terms of a future staff request.
All right, well you guys can tune in on Tuesday to hear all about it and more in depth with the council. Starts at 6 p.m. for the regular council meeting, although we have our CIP which is the council, at 5 p.m. Not sure how long that's going to take. Could be 10 minutes, it could be a half hour, and then tune back in. But I appreciate you joining me and Steve Barg here for our council preview and getting information out to you before next Tuesday. Got any questions, call your alderman or call Steve Barg. Call me. I don't mind. I can get that information to you or provide the person that has that information. So.
Yeah, we always appreciate hearing from the public, whether it's email, phone call, whatever. We need to hear from you. It's how we know whether we're on the right track or not.
Exactly. All right. Well, we'll close here. Thanks for watching us on Council Preview.